Starting off with your base, the best tip regarding base building is to build it on a flat surface. You'll need as much space as possible later on, so avoid building on uneven land or areas where you can't build, such as cliffs and water. Some structures, such as the ranch, can't be built if there's too much of an incline. Steep hills are a waste of space as well. The starting location isn't actually that bad. If you go down the path, you'll find some flat areas where you have a little bit more space to play with. You could also, after making a character, hit respawn and choose another starter location like the Marsh Islands. Whatever location you choose, the flatter the better. It's also a good idea to have berries, wood and stone inside your base area so pals can auto farm materials. Your base area is a circle around where you put the pal box. Be mindful of where you place structures. Right now you can't move structures once they're placed. You can only disassemble and rebuild them. Not that much of an issue at the start, but it becomes a pain later on when you have a large base. I would also go with a minimal style for your first base. You don't need to build the wooden foundations and walls all over. Just create one room for your bed and everything else can be placed on the floor. This will save you a lot of wood to use on other items. Now let's look at how pals work at your base. Once you capture a pal, check their stats to see what kind of jobs they can do. Some pals are just good for one thing, while others can do multiple jobs. Ideally, you want the ones that can do various jobs so they don't sit there just being idle after completing their task. At the start, you won't have many options, but try to capture one pal that can do logging, one for mining, and one for farming. This will cover your basic needs. You can lift up pals and throw them at something to assign that specific job to them. So if you want a certain pal working at the crafting bench, pick him up and throw him at the bench. It's also useful to build chests near the resources your pals are gathering. Chest storage is connected in the base. You don't need to have the resources in your inventory to craft items, but having a chest close to the resource speeds up the gathering process tenfold, as they won't need to travel to drop off the items. Some of the pals are super slow when carrying things, so it's very useful. If you decide to transport the resources yourself, you might go over the weight limit, but it won't matter if the chest is right there. Next, on to combat. At the start, you won't have many options regarding pals, so I definitely recommend creating the shield, which completely absorbs the first few attacks and regenerates while out of combat. It's incredibly useful when you're fighting a new enemy and you're learning its attack patterns. The melee weapons are terrible. I suggest only using ranged weapons as they allow you to stay further back, giving you time to dodge attacks. Also, use the environment as a barrier whenever you can. Most pals have ranged attacks of their own and you might run out of stamina moving around and dodging, so it's good to have some cover. You won't be able to do as much damage as your pals, so once you have some, you should be using them to fight. Speaking of pals, as your base gets going, you want to use them for almost every task in the game. Movement, gathering and combat should all be done using pals. Try to get a low-level rideable pal like the Rush Ball or Melpacker as soon as you can. They might not be the fastest, but they can be used to fight, making gathering other pals a lot easier. The leather you need to make saddles can be dropped from bandits or pals, or even bought from a trader. Don't worry about your pals dying, they just get knocked out and are unavailable for a short period of time. You can put them in your pal box to start recovery. They also heal while in your party, so while in combat, put them away when they go on low HP and swap them out for another pal. You can even use this technique to dodge attacks. Put them away as the boss is about to do a big attack and get them out again straight away. You should also check out the element graph in the survival guide. Every element has a strong and weak matchup. Using pals that are strong against the enemy's element will boost your pal's damage. It doesn't really matter against weaker enemies, but if you're struggling against a special foe, then check out the graph and use a suitable fighter. Another thing to keep an eye on is the passives your pals have. Every pal is different. Passives can be positive and negative depending on what you're using the pal for. For example, if they're working at your base and have a negative working speed, then you need to switch them for better pals. My pal here was stupidly slow at building arrows. When I checked his stats, it had a minus 60% working speed, so I switched it ASAP. Passives are random and show up once you capture a pal. It's a good idea to capture a lot of pals. That way you'll have a nice variety of passives to choose from, and later on you can combine them in the pal pod to create better versions. Regarding speccing your character, the most important stats are health, stamina and weight. Attack power only goes up by 2 per level, which seems like a total waste, and you'll be using pals to do most of the combat anyway. Work speed seems irrelevant, as again you'll be using pals to literally do everything after the starting stages. Health on the other hand is really important, as you'll need to sponge a lot of damage. Pals attack fast and hard, so you will get hit a lot. Stamina is needed for dodging while in combat, and it's also used for gliding and swimming. If you run out of stamina while swimming, you will drown. Carrying weight is also useful to level up, allowing you to explore and gather for longer. You can also get pals like the Cativer that increase your carry capacities, so when you're going to grind a resource, put 4 of them in your party. You can respec your character. Status points can be reset by using the memory wiping medicine. To craft it, you need an electric medicine workbench, which unlocks at technology level 43. The memory wiping medicine has no effect when consumed by a pal, it only works on players. Now, going over some general tips, make sure you're using markers on the map. Not everything is marked. I like to mark dungeons and ores as I'll be going back to them multiple times. Also, get a glider as soon as possible as it makes exploring easier. There's a lot of elevation in the game. You'll be climbing up and jumping down all the time, so it's good to have the glider. You do use stamina when the glider is open, so if you're using it to cushion a fall, just open it closer to the ground. It's even better if you can capture a flying pal and build a saddle glove. You can't ride the small ones, but they allow you to glide further. And if you use them while you have more momentum, like sliding down a hill, you glide faster. Rush bows are very useful for mining stone and ores by using their rush attack. They're low level and easy to capture. My favourite place to mine ore is the Desolate Church. I fast travel there, go behind the church and use the boar to quickly mine and fast travel back. Food is important. Always have sufficient food in your inventory for yourself and your pals. If the hunger bar goes to 0, health drops very quickly. It's also percentage based, so it doesn't matter how much HP your pal has, it will still drop quickly. You need all the pals fed and at full HP for combat and boss fights. You can create a small feedback using ancient tech points, which allows the pals in your party to eat automatically. If you're struggling to get rare resources, there are traders around the map. Some resources are difficult to obtain, so sometimes it's better to buy them. For example, the venom glands for poison arrows. Money isn't too hard to make. One method is by doing dungeons and selling the drops you get from them, or you can sell resources and even pals. That's all for this video. Give it a like if you found it helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.